after a bit more tinkering about, this is the settings I've set mine to. 1688, back to coming out of it. So now look, it's 7.8 again. Yep, I'd set it, although I hadn't pressed OK, had I? So maximum I've got now set at 3.5. I haven't got it any higher than that, and it seems to be a sweet spot that again seems to work for me. It was at 5.4 when I got it. I'll leave it at 4 for now. It went down at 3 point odd, but it doesn't stay that up there for long once the temperature rises. I've got the slowest speed at 1350. It won't let you slow it any slower than that. And 4.7 you can take it up to I think 5,000, but again, it just through messing about. Now you might know, some of you guys could probably help me. So we've done that, we've pressed next, okay, 12 volts, okay, SN1, it's got one magnet on the fan. This next figure, most of the ones I've seen on YouTube don't have it. What is that? Now that is configurable, it won't go up anymore. Go from 1 to 6. It's set at 5 from the factory, and I don't know what it is. If any of you know, please tell me, because I ain't got a clue what it is. And I'm only learning this, just like anybody watching this probably is. If there's any pros on here that can tell me some of them parameters, what is that PF for? I really don't know. I've looked in the manual that came with it, and there's a full thing list of going through all these parameters, including setting your hertz and your speed of your fan to be user configurable to suit your environment. However, there's nothing that mentions that PF 1 to 6 set at 5 from the factory. I've watched dozens of YouTube videos of guys showing you how to set these up, and not one of them, when he's scrolling through this, okay, it goes SN1, which for the magnets, and that's 1 or 2 for 1 or 2 magnets on the fan, but it was preset at 1. I'm assuming it should have been, so I left it alone. Then when they press next, it just says off, next, and you're out of it. There was no mention of that PF, and it's not come up on the screen. Whether this is an old version or whether this is newer, I really do not know. I really don't know. It's 11 degrees in here according to this. 1.4 it says. So let's okay, so if I do that, it says it's 10 degrees, and this is where I can set my temperature. So I'm going to set it up to, I don't know, 25. I'll leave this running, but we'll come back when temperature's gone up a bit. I hope you can see that clearly. In a minute that'll dim back down. It only brightens up when you touch it. So these hertz settings, the lowest setting and there's the highest setting. Now when you first fire up, which I have just done and you're seeing this real time, is it's going to give the most fuel, which is whatever it's set at, and it's going to use the high fuel rate, and when it reaches the temperature set point, when it reaches its temperature set point, it drops to your low fuel rate, which is the one I've set at 1.1 now. I was hoping it'd use probably less fuel, but to be honest with you, it's using so little fuel anyway, it don't really matter. The only reason I did it was because the temperature in here at 1.4 hertz pulse. The temperature, once it's reached its set point, carries on rising. Now that is an issue. I've seen a few camper van guys say that when you've got it to your set point, it keeps rising. So the 1.4 hertz pump rate was too high. I dropped it down to 0.8, but whether it ever went down to 0.8, I don't know, because every time I touched the thing it showed 1 point odd. But I've dropped it to 1.1 and I've okayed it. You saw me do that, and I'm hoping that it will drop to 1.1, meaning that it won't rise the temperature as high once it reaches its set point. That's just my theory, but we'll suck it and see. I'm highly delighted, and if it didn't do any more than what it does now without me doing any more settings, I'm delighted with it. It's great. It's blowing tons of heat out. It's really, really good. That's already up to, well, I can hold my hand there. It's not burning my hand yet, but I'm sure it will get higher. Some are saying, and I think quite truly, if you raise your high rate, fuel rate up, and I showed you, you can take it right up to 8. Whether it reaches that or not, I don't know. But what they're saying is that the core temperature of the heat exchanger would get considerably hotter. And I did see one guy doing it. Is he called McCluskey or something? Well, orange overalls, YouTube channel. He's doing it in his garage. He's got loads of these. He strips them down, does all sorts with them. And he did speed one up, and he had his temperature probe on it, using an Evo meter or whatever. And it did get very hot. It went up to 250 or 240 odd core temperature. That is hot. If you had a power failure at that time and it all stopped, that'd be like sticking that unit in the oven, wouldn't it? So whether it'd melt the casing, I don't know. So yeah, I'm not going to ever take it that high. Because it's set much lower now than what the factory setting is. I think he showed that the core temperature on average reached, I think, 160 maximum. I had a few snags about the power supply being incorrectly fitted, open, uncased, no strain gauges on the wires. Strain gauges on wires, basically a cable clip. You'd put that on an appliance that moved around, it was connected to something, you'd put a strain gauge on it, or a clip, so that the moving around wires wouldn't pull the terminals out of the connections. This, however, is a fixed appliance. It's fixed and it doesn't move. There is no strain. I'd fit a strain gauge to something that had strain on it. Strain gauge is probably a bad example, because a strain gauge is an electrical piece of equipment, to be honest with you. A clip. I haven't put any clips on it. Don't need to put any clips on it. It doesn't move. There's nothing being pulled. The terminals are not being pulled. I'm not sure about this enclosure, as is why it has to be in a what? It isn't an enclosure. It's completely contained. It's screwed to a steel wall. I give up. It's the same as a picture I'll show you. I'll take with my other phone and I'll show you. This is on the back of a control panel with a milling machine. So I'll put that in. That is the same power supply, more or less. Probably made by somebody different, I don't know, but it's the same power supply on the back of a control panel, feeding 12 volts to the X-axis power feed, which is done by a Mondeo wiper motor, which had sent some people into hysterics. Health and safety, terrible. Shouldn't do it, bad installation. But it's done and it's running and it's great. And I haven't blown anything up. And I'm going to revisit this in about a year's time. Let's just see how reliable it is. There's been a lot of criticism about people saying it's possible that they're not reliable, and now for them to not be reliable would mean at some point they're going to break down. They sell every part for these. I think that's £19 for a new display. You can buy the ECU, the glow plug, wiring harness, fuel pump, fuel filter. They sell absolutely everything, and they're all more or less the same, but the company I bought this from is H Calorie. H Calorie have a website, they sell everything for them, and it's peanuts. So 6 months down the line this thing goes pop. Well, what would go pop? It could probably be a heater plug, I guess, or injector. You can buy them, and they're only a few pound each, they're not expensive. But I'm going to give it a run, and there's other people that's on YouTube saying they've had them in for years and they've never had any trouble at all with them, and I believe them. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I believe them. There isn't that much to go wrong with them. They're quite a simple device. As we know, heater plug comes on. Once it reaches the temperature or a set time, which is usually about a minute, the fuel pump begins to fire, and then the thing fires up. Once the thing's fired up and the temperature starts to rise, the heater plug goes off. So the heater plug's only on for, I don't know, 1-2 minutes tops, and drops back down again. And then you're running at, what is it, 40 watts or whatever they say they are for the fan, and the little pump, and the display, of course, all 12 volts. So yeah, I think they're ultra reliable, or they will be, but time will tell and we'll prove it. Of course then there'll be people that say, you're saying you've run it for a year and you haven't had any trouble, you're a liar, you've bought all sorts for it. I wouldn't need to lie, why would I want to lie? I'm telling you, it doesn't use a lot of diesel, and people are saying it's impossible to use the amount of diesel that you're using, because if you work out calorific values and do this calculation and that calculation, it's impossible for diesel to give you that much heat for that cost of, or that unit of diesel. I'm sorry for those people that put that figure out, and I'm sure they've googled it and that's what Google's told them, or Wikipedia or whatever. All I know is what I know, and what I know is they don't use a lot of diesel. And all subscribers of my channel, a lot of them have got them, and I'm sure that they'll back up the fact that they don't use a lot of diesel. That's why they're so much better than electric heating. So, fire risk, okay. I suppose there's always an element of fire risk, no matter what you've got. This microphone round. And electric heating, so fan heater, sat in a corner. Somebody said the element doesn't glow. No, it doesn't, it's black heat. A fan heater's black heat, and yeah, perfectly okay till that rag falls off the shelf and drops in front of it and it starts to get hot. Now, the thermal cutout inside would cut it out, as would this thing. If the core temperature gets too hot, the thermal cutout trips it out and it stops it, or it cools it down, I believe. I think the fan keeps going, I'm not sure, I've not done it, don't want to try it, don't want to get to that point. But yeah, fan heater can be dangerous, I suppose. You could get electric shock from it if it got damp, the case, it were dirty. I suppose you could get a belt off it. Alternative would be paraffin heater, sat in here, kerosene heater, paraffin heater. You've got all them fumes coming off it, horrible things. There's no fumes from these because they're vented outside. The core's sealed. What other? A gas heater, yeah. They're great, a gas heater. I've got one gas bottle and a gas burner unit. And a few people I know have got those trolley ones that you can have in your house. Gas bottle in the bottom and the ceramic element above it, and great. They cause condensation like mad. So if you've got one of them in your workshop, you need to be well aired and well vented, because gas heating causes a stack of condensation. These don't. No condensation from these. It's the air that's in the room that you're using. I'm recirculating it. Right, so the pipework that I've got is 75mm diameter, as supplied with the unit. I ordered some extra pipe because I wanted to do some slightly longer runs and a recirc. Apparently that's all wrong, because this guy on a certain forum saying it should be 90mm. Where those figures come from I really don't know, but all I know is what air I'm sucking in at the back of the heater I'm blowing out of the front through a 75mm pipe. So sometimes it might be idea to have a bigger inlet, but why would it want to be bigger than 75? It can only move that volume of air, it can't move any more. But apparently it's all wrong what I've done. Okay guys, I just thought I'd bang this in. We're rising temperature now, we're up to 13, and I'm just to let you know that I didn't tell you to reduce the hertz rate of your burner. I didn't tell you to increase it, and I didn't tell you to alter your fan speeds. I showed you where the settings were, and a lot of people already know, but a lot didn't, and I was just showing you where they were and not what you should set them at. You should set them at your environment. Let's take, for example, you fit this thing into a small van, let's say a little Fiat Doblo or something, one person camper van, but you want to fit one of these. You'd probably fit the smaller version, but you might want to knock that hertz rate down of the lowest rate, simply because at that standard 1.4 rate it's still too hot. If you had a Winnebago motorhome, 45 foot long or whatever they are, with a slide out bedroom and a slide out kitchen like my brother-in-law's dad used to have, I think that was called a Daybreak, big American thing, and you had one of these in, you'd probably find 1.4's fine for your slow rate, your low rate. All I know is some people have set these down to 8 degrees, which is as low as it'll go on the what you're calling for, and they're still ticking over too high. I just showed you where the menu was, that's all. Didn't tell you to do anything, only showing you where it was. So yeah, I've had a bit of stick about that as well, but in the user manual, to be fair, it does say user configurable parameters, and it then shows you how to go into the parameters, which I showed you, and you can adjust them to suit yourself. I'm sure the 0.8 must be a safety factor on the lowest side, and 8 is the safety factor on the high side, but I haven't run it up to anything like 8, as I've said. I think it would get hot, the car, and I think you'd use tons of diesel too. No need to. I'm fine as it is, that's great. So tonight I'm going to start and do some more on my large bore steady rest. Start doing the M6 holes, which is going to be part 6, I believe, of the Hemingway's kit. I hope you guys watch it. Right, it's been belting away now for, what, half an hour, maybe something like that. Around half an hour. The heat's belching out of there, so do some temperature probing. It's flat out, as in flat out whatever hertz it's up to, but it's kicking out loads of heat and it's great. I've got my hand on there, as you can see, and I'm not on fire yet, I'm not burning, it's not cool and it's not red hot. Same with the pipe work and the plastic. Do a few temperatures, because this holds the temperature, and when I let go of the trigger I can show you, so if you can't see it on the camera. So what we got here, 56 degrees is that. The pipe work, it's reading 71. This network here, can you see this? Y branch, 65. The cases were moved down. 19. My return air pipe, I'm glad I've just done this, because it does prove a point. So what's nearly adjacent to this is the wall, the clad wall, so I'll probe that, and that's what the temperature of the wall is. Do it again over here. Can't exhaust there. Do it up here. Yeah, it's about the same all over. 15 point, if you can see that. 15.3 anyway. The return air is 17.5, so I am pulling some recirc air back. This is 15, that's 17. That's 15, this is 17 and a half. If I took that pipe off there and just pulled the cold air in from the garage, I'd be pulling 15 degrees into the back of there and warming it by that amount, therefore taking more fuel to burn to get that heat difference in that amount. You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure you do. But I'm not, I'm pulling it in at 17 and a half, so that's got to be more efficient surely, return air. As I say, I did work on doing aircon for a lot of years for a company, and I didn't install it, by the way. All I did was wire it all up. I fit the control panel with all the cables and wire it up. So return air was always pulled from high level. And I just thought I'd add that bit in. This thing is not overheating. I'll move the camera back a bit. We'll see what the air temperature actually is coming out of it. 79.4. So yeah, some heat coming out of there. Lovely. I'll just try my other one, which is low down, because I've taken that damper off there. I have got one on order, one of these which has got dampers you can close down so that I can trim it so I can push more air to the one that's on the ducting. We'll have a quick look at it. I'm doing the camera so I'm proving I'm not lying, because I do get accused of lying sometimes. So that one down there, you see that's blowing out at 25.4, so that ain't that hot. Yeah, it's average 25 degrees coming out of that one, and 70 odd out of that, so which proves I'm not getting the airflow to here. So once that other damper, because all I had was masking tape blanking that off, which wasn't a good idea. But my boat that I had with the air dispatcher, that had 4 outlets, one in one bedroom, one in another bedroom, one in the galley, one up on the helm. That had 4, and they all had, apart from one of them, they all had vents on them that you could open and close to balance the heat yourself. Okay. Right, so we've had the heating on now for just short of 3 hours. I've been in here doing work on my steady rest. According to that is 19. I don't know, let's have a see what the one on the wall says. That's saying 18.2. But it's comfortable in here. I'm quite comfy. But put my hand under here, see if I burn it. And we'll do some temperatures, because I did the temperatures with it running at high speed. So that is the floor. Oh, hands shaking. That's the woodwork directly under the exhaust. That's the unit. That's the plastic wide piece. Return air. Yeah, I'm getting return air at nearly the temperature what's in the room, aren't I? Definitely got to be efficient. The pump, have a listen. That's right. So what I did was I'd had a few people telling me that apart from I'm a total idiot, which you don't have to tell me that because I know, is that running it too slow, the hertz of the pump can coke the unit up. I don't know if that's correct or not, and I don't know because I haven't had it on long enough to know that. But what I've done is I've upped it on that appraisal and I've put it to 1.1. They come stock at 1.4, but I did tell you that my temperature in the workshop kept rising. Now that's held pretty clear. That one there has held at that pretty much all night, well, for the last 2 hours. So yeah, I'm quite happy that I've at 1.1 it just holds the temperature. Now if it suddenly turned icy freezing -10 outside, it's possible I might have to crank that up, but it's only the touch of a button. It's dead easy to do, to crank that up. And its maximum it ran at tonight were 4. One guy said the sweet spot were 3.6 that he'd found. So fuel, again, I filled this up 3 days ago and I filled it to the neck there. So I've used that. Now, I'll give you that in some measurement because it's hard to tell by just looking at it. I know this is 400 millimeters and it's 400 millimeters wide. So let's have a look in millimeters. What do you think it's used? 60. It's used 60 millimeters in the last 3 days. And I have run it quite a lot. Last night we're on for 3.5 hours. So I've had it on for a good 3 hours tonight. Because I did come in here fairly early. It was just after 7, I'm sure it was, when I come in here and started doing the this jobby, which I've been drilling and fitting the M6 threaded rods in the lathe, which is all done and finished now. That's another thing. So yeah, I'm happy, very happy with it. Albeit I have had probably 5 bad comments. I'm a member of 4 different forums, and on those forums I asked the question about, I'm thinking of fitting a diesel heater in my garage workshop, what do you think? Now 3 of the forums, I don't think I went on the 4th one. I'm on a Vauxhall forum and I'm on a Ducati one, and obviously, as you know, I'm on a Jaguar one. Anyway, I asked all the questions and tons and tons of people, yeah, I've got one in my camper van, I've got one in my garage, I've got one in my double garage, it don't quite keep it warm enough, I've got one in my single garage workshops. A few people have actually plumbed them through into the homes. On one particular forum, which I won't name, and anybody watching this that is a member of that forum will know who they are, know what the forum is. Really few members really negative about this. Fitting a diesel heater, absolute sacrilege, on about various building regulations and tanks being outside and that being near the doorway, being diesel. I said it was non-flammable. Of course it's flammable. Anything that burns flammable. But it's the flash point and that. And I got an high flash point like petrol and thinners. I mean thinners, fast thinners is terrible stuff. Wave a match near it and it'll go up. And it's the vapour that's the more volatile than the actual substance, is the vapour that's more flammable. Like what's most dangerous, a full tank of petrol being set on fire or a half empty one set on fire? And the answer is a half empty one, because they can explode. A full tank one wouldn't, it'd burn. It wouldn't explode until it probably got down to a lower level. But yeah, it's the gas, the vapour, and I'm digressing, I shouldn't do. So I did my own health and safety, if you like. My own is a risk assessment and a method statement in my head. I didn't write it, which is what I always had to do for work. And I had them all pre-made and you just filled in the figures. So my method statement, one of them, risk assessment, was access and egress. Yeah, in my head I looked at that. I didn't discuss it with anybody. I didn't write it down for anybody. And in after, I didn't see that as dangerous being there, and if it leaked, then it leaked, and I'd wipe up the spillage and it wouldn't explode, and there's nothing down there that will explode. There's a gas bottle there that nobody's actually mentioned, but it is, that's 100% argon. It's empty, but it's 100% argon, which is inert gas. All sorts of comments I've had, but basically I didn't come on or start this thread on how you would fit a diesel heater in your workshop. I just put, I'm thinking of doing one, and I've bought one, and I'm going to have a go at it. And I did, and I fitted it, and I didn't show it being fitted. I fitted it, and I kept showing bits and brackets that I was making and various other things, and I took all sorts of things into consideration that I thought were suitable to take into consideration. But the flack I've had's just been unreal from 3 people. Let's say 3 people. This particular forum I'm on about, most of the members of that forum that added to the thread actually said, yeah, I've got one of them in my workshop, they're fantastic, I've got one in my garage, it works great, they're good on fuel, you know, save on electric, blah blah blah, no problems, just certain people. But I'm not a rocket scientist, and I think some of them may be rocket scientists. You see, I don't know, that there's one particular guy, I think he must work for NASA, because he knows everything. He's a really clever guy. Whether he actually ever makes anything, or I've never seen anything that he's ever done, whether he makes toy soldiers for a living, I've no idea what he does, but he's a very clever guy. He's so clever he ties you up in knots. And that's not really what this posting were all about. It was all about, I'm going to fit a diesel heater in my garage, what do you think? And I did it, and I posted some results. They're not conclusive results, but the results. I've put a vent over there, and I've put a vent down there, and I'm glad I did. It doesn't give out as much air as it could do, but as said, I'm putting a damped outlet over there so that I can ramp that down, forcing more air up and over the doorway and down to this vent to give a bit more heat from there to warm the floor area. I'd asked a few questions about the return air. Not many people said it were a bad idea, but some people said other things. I mean, one guy keeps on about putting a fan on the roof, but like, you know, like you'd have, I think, in my conservatory at other house, I had 2 of those big fans that went round, you know, ones with the light fitting in. And in summer you click the switch one way, and in winter you clicked it the other, and it blowed the heat back down. It blew the heat down into the room that was up high level, and I think in summer you flick the switch the other way, the fan went the other way, and it pulled colder air in and pushed the hot air up in the air. I don't know where it'd go, but that's how they worked. So there's no fan going in. That heater's now defunct. It'll get used if I run out of fuel or it breaks down, which quite a few people seem to think, because it's Chinese. Excuse me, just have a drink. Because it's a Chinese diesel heater, and they're only a percentage of the cost of the Abbas and the other one, Webasto. They're quite an expensive unit, and they're fantastic units, and these are not quite as good a quality apparently, and which they're not, I'm sure. Doesn't make them unreliable, so we'll see. People have said, I've had one for 3 years, never had a minute's bother. Other guys on YouTube are pulling them apart, they're absolutely full of coke. But then some of them guys have been running them on used engine oil, chip fat oil they've got from local chippy, I guess, and mixed it with bits of kerosene and all sorts of different things that they've done to try and run them cheaper. I've not done that, and I'm not going to do either. I'd love to get some kerosene. There's one guy, Ian Matthews, you know who you are, he just bought a load for work, 59p, I think he said a litre. I really wish I could get some for that price. I tried last night, after he'd done that, I went online and put Leeds and what I could get in Leeds, and I found one that I could get it for 89p a litre, including VAT. of course, they wanted 420 quid or something off me, because they wanted to sell me 500 litres. That was the minimum sale they'd do, and it comes on a wagon. So I don't want 500 litres, I've got no tank to hold 500 litres. And I'd probably, like my brother-in-law says tonight, in my lifetime, I'd probably never use 500 litres. I'll be gone by then. So yeah, so at the moment I'm going to have to be paying pump prices when this 27 litres has run out. Okay guys, so that were a little video to stick in. There's some bits before this little bit that I'll shove in, showing temperatures and going into the menu and the settings and one thing and another. So, okay.